Right, I think we'll make a start. Monsignor Murray, Reverend Fathers, relatives of Father James Coigley, friends of Father James Coigley, and fellow parishioners. Just over 20 years ago, Ben Fern invited Monsignor Murray to the community centre in Ballyhagan to give a talk on a priest called Father James Coigley. As a result of this talk, I realised that I shared the same faith as this man, the same hopes, the same dreams, and the same aspirations. This man and I walked the same roads and prayed in the same church. Father James, it may have taken 212 years, but it's a case of welcome home. I would now like to call on his namesake, his great-great-grand-nephew, to unveil the memorial to his great-great-grand-uncle, James Coigley. And for those of you who can't read it from where you're standing, it says, "Sacred to the memory of Father James Coigley, native of this parish, patriot and United Irishman, hanged on Pennington Heath, Maidstone, Kent, 7th of June 1798. And here we have the crest of the United Irishmen and their mottos on it. It says equality. And then at the bottom it says, "It is new strung and shall be heard." Then we have the Irish, Yes, Garo, Anam Dilish. And then at the very bottom it says, "This stone is erected as he requested by his countrymen in proud remembrance." And now I'll ask a member of the Coigley family, Anne, to speak to you on our great-great-grand-uncle.
Monsignor O'Murray, Reverend Fathers, people of the parish of Kilmore and surrounding areas, and members of the extended Coigley family. It is a great honour for me to represent the relatives of Father James on this special day, the unveiling of this memorial to honour the memory of Father James in his native parish of Kilmore. My brother, Father Tom Coigley, sends his apologies. Because of parish duties, he is unable to be present here today. Just to give you our connection to Father James, our dad was Patrick Coigley. His grandfather was James, nephew of the man we honour here today. He was the 3-year-old nephew Father James refers to in his final letters. Father James was born in Castlereagh in August 1761 to James Coigley and Louisa Donnelly. His sponsors were James Marley and Jane Donnelly. Many of you here present today are probably descendants of friends and neighbours of the Coigley family of Castlereagh. Valentine Derry was a cousin and faithful friend of Father James. I'm delighted to see the Derry family represented here today. We really appreciate the great work that the splendid group of people who, despite many obstacles and difficulties, persisted to make this wonderful occasion possible. A special word of thanks to Benedict Fern, who all those 20 years ago invited Monsignor Raymond O'Murray to Ballyhagan. Only then did many of the people of the area learn about their native son. Benedict, along with Patrick Morgan, Gareth McCann and Malachy Derry, set about honouring Father James. Malachy Derry passed to his eternal reward and was replaced by his brother Paddy, who continued the good work. Monsignor Raymond Murray was deeply involved despite his heavy workload. On our family side, Brendan McCardle, Eileen McGeown and John Quigley in Cork did their own diligent work. Sadly, Brendan has passed to his reward. he would dearly have loved to be here on this special occasion. Father James exhorted Irishmen of every religious persuasion to avoid bigotry and prejudice. These sentiments we all hold dear to this day. Some days before his death, Father James wrote to his great friend Valentine Derry, "I pray you to signify my last request, to put up a small stone in my memory with only my name on it. Today, you, the good people of Armagh, have granted his request. Here in his native parish of Kilmore, 212 years after his death and almost 250 years since his birth, Father James is being honoured." On behalf of Father James himself, his immediate family and all the extended family, I wish to express our heartfelt thanks to you. Míle, míle buíochas díobh go léir.
I will now ask our parish priest, Father Michael Toller, to come forward and bless this memorial.
Heavenly Father, you sent your Son to us because you love us and want to save us. By the power of his cross, free us from sin and let us live each day for you. Bless this sign of glory and let it remind us that Jesus died and rose for all. Help us to carry our cross with him every day and to follow him in serving others. We ask this grace through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Father Michael. Our next speaker will address you on the life and times of Father James Coigley. He's an historian, a researcher, a writer of several books and articles, editor of Seanachas Ardwaka, and someone who basically has followed in the footsteps of Father James Coigley. And like him, a man who speaks up for the rights of his people. Reverend Fathers, ladies and gentlemen, Monsignor Murray.
Our cards again, we gather to remember an Irish patriot, priest of the Archdiocese of Armagh, a united Irishman who gave his life for his country. On the 7th of June, 1798, Father James Coigley was hanged and beheaded on Pendennin Heath near Maidstone, Kent, England. On hearing the news of Father Coigley's brave death, the cantankerous Wolfe Tone, who was no friend, wrote in his diary on the 20th of June, "Coigley has been executed and died like a hero. If ever I reach Ireland and that we establish our liberty, I will be the first to propose a monument to his memory." Father Coigley was born in the townland of Kilmore in 1761. His people, probably in the second generation before him, were an immigrant family from County Derry. He was educated in Dundalk and the Irish College Parish, from which he returned as a priest at the outbreak of the French Revolution. He spent the first years of his ministry working for peace and reconciliation in the troubled area of his native Loughgall and Kilmore, and also throughout the north. His own family were victims of the outbreak of sectarian violence at the time of the Battle of the Diamond in 1795. His affinity with the Defenders and his ministry in Dundalk brought him into contact with the United Irishmen. He came to see their ideal, the union of Protestant, Catholic and Dissenter, as an answer to the corruption of power and the oppression of the ascendancy and government. He became an important figure in the United Irishmen when the young militants of the North came to the fore following the arrest of United Irish leaders in 1797. He was probably the most important man to encourage the links between English radicals in Manchester and London and the United Irishmen. The aim of his journey to France as an Irish emissary in 1797 was to push anxiously for immediate French aid in the rising crisis brought about by government and army oppression. This is what brought his faction, the Nappertandy faction, into conflict with Wolfe Tone in Paris. It was on a return journey to France in 1798 with Arthur O'Connor, a forceful and intelligent United Irish leader, and with a few others, that he was arrested. Fr Coigley was the only one found guilty in the ignominious trial in Maidstone that followed. We might listen to some of his own words in a letter from prison, first of all addressed to the Irish Catholics. Yes, my friends, you know me, very many of you, personally. You have been witnesses of my moral conduct and have not forgot my exertions in favour of the indigent and unprotected. You all know I am and always have been steadfastly attached equally with you to the principles of our holy religion. It is in the name then of our religion and of our God that I call upon you never to break the solemn engagements of union, friendship and brotherly love which you have gloriously entered into with your brethren of every religious persuasion. His words to his friends, the Irish Presbyterians, echo down 200 years like a sermon for today. Born and bred amongst you, you know my principles and exertions. How ardently I chose the hope of seeing all party rage, intolerant bigotry, baneful prejudice, and religious animosity forever buried under the altar of national union. Yes, my friends, the day is at hand when that glorious plan will be realized. In spite of all the powers of darkness, when the North and South, the East and West of my beloved country, fully united in the endearing ties of brotherly affection, shall bid eternal defiance to all villains, whether they come from France, England, or elsewhere. Convinced for my soul that you will strictly adhere to that union which the immortal R sealed with his blood, and which we Catholics are sealing with ours every day. I deem it unnecessary to exhort you to anything but mercy. As I shall not have the satisfaction of dying among you, my wish is that even my bones should rest at Belfast, but that is all denied me. Wolfe Tone's own tragic death meant that he did not live to erect a memorial to Fr Coigley, nor do the priest's bones rest in his beloved Belfast. Here, however, in this parish of Kilmore, not far from his own home, we are proud today to unveil this monument to him. It is a beautiful monument, lovely inscription, and I congratulate the committee for their wonderful work and perseverance. And welcome also here the Coigley family. It's wonderful to see them. Regret, as has been said, that our friend Brendan McCardle has passed away, but he is in the company of Fr Coigley, and they are both here with us in spirit. Fr Coigley's ideal of the Union of Ireland has not been realised, though it has moved towards it. His words today call for union of hearts and minds, for forgiveness, truth and reconciliation. On the first centenary of Father Coigley's execution, 600 Irishmen attended Mass in St. Francis Church, Maidstone, and marched to the place of his execution at Pendon Heath. They erected the 3 fine stained glass windows in his memory in the church, dedicated to St. Patrick, St. Bridget and St. Francis. They also erected a lovely brass cross with inscription in Irish and English at the back of the church. I had the privilege of going to Maidstone and visiting the church, beautiful, and visiting Pendon Heath. As relatives and friends, relatives of Father Coigley and the Derry family gathered today for unveil this monument. Our fond thoughts go to all who have suffered for their country. And again, to thank you all and to remember Father Coigley and his great work for peace and reconciliation. We also, some 12 years ago, at the 200th celebration of the United Irishmen, unveiled a monument also in Armagh Cemetery. And it's wonderful then to see another monument here, and it took a few hundred years, but he is not forgotten, judging by the great crowd that has come here today and all your good work. Father Coigley, you might say, wrote his own inscription. In one of his last letters, he quoted from the poet Parish, Dulce et decorum est per patria mori. It is a sweet, a noble thing to die for the fatherland.
Thank you very much, Monsignor Murray. To propose a vote of thanks is a very sprightly 86-year-old local historian, a man who has written a book detailing in depth the history of this historic parish of Kilmore, a man who holds the cause of Father Coigley close to his heart, a true Irishman, Mr. Ben Fern.
Reverend Fathers, ladies, gentlemen, and fellow parishioners. This is on a historic day for our ancient parish of Kilmore. Today we have reversed a crime committed 212 years ago when an innocent man was so unjustly condemned. We have erected this stone not in any spirit of animosity or triumphalism, for Father Coigley was a peacemaker, a fact which is well documented, but because it was his last wish in a prison cell that a stone with his name on it should be erected to his memory. This Celtic cross is our testimonial to his bravery and indomitability, of which we are very proud. We are honoured to have James and Anne Coigley here today to unveil this monument to their illustrious family ancestor. Father Toner and Father Conley have been very helpful and supportive in this project from the start. We thank them most sincerely. Thanks also to Monsignor Murray for his lucid commentary on the life and times of our brave countryman, patriot and priest. Father Murray has written and lectured in historical journals about Father Coigley for many years. I'd also like to thank the contributors to the memorial, whose largesse and generosity will be long remembered, and have made this day an historical landmark for our parish. As chairman of the Memorial Committee, I would pay special tribute to the faithful few who kept alive our dream that one day Fr Coigley would be honoured in his native parish. Our Secretary, Patrick Morgan, Treasurer Gareth McCann, and Malika Derry, who sadly did not live to see its completion. But whose place was so ably filled by his brother Paddy. Today, our dream is a reality. Father Coigley's dust moulders in a foreign field, but his memory is not forgotten in our parish of Kilmore. It is indeed a privilege and honour to me to propose a vote of thanks to all here present today. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ben. And now I'd ask Gareth McCann to come forward and lay a cross. Gareth, as you can see, is a young man, and it's great to see the youth involved. Just before the final event, you're all welcome into the vestry for a cup of tea and something to eat. And thanks very much to Barry Knoxon family for providing the catering. We'll finish off with Father Michael Toner singing Salve Regina.
I notice a few other clerics there in the congregation, so I am not singing the Salve Regina on my own, I assure you. It is customary to sing the Salve Regina at the funeral of a cleric, so it's appropriate that we do sing that today. And anybody who's at boarding school who might remember the Salve Regina, I warmly encourage you to join in.
The 3 priests.
Also affectionately known as the 3 degrees. Salve Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, et spes nostra salve. A te clamamus, exules filii Eve, a te suspiramus, gementes et flentes, in hac lacrimarum vale. Ea ergo, advocata nostra, illos tuos, misericordes oculos, ad nos converte. Et Iesum benedictum fructum ventris tui, nobis post hoc exilium ostende. O clemens, O pia, O dulcis Virgo Maria.
Well done. That's it, finished, isn't it?
Lovely.
I need to go and take a few pictures of people.
Well done, Ben.
I met with Napper Tandy and he took me by the hand. He said, how's dear old Ireland and how does she stand? She's the most distressful country that you have ever seen. For the hanging men and women for the wearing of the green, for the wearing of the green, for the wearing of the green. They're hanging men and women for the wearing of the green. And since the colour we must wear is England's cruel red, sure Ireland's sons will ne'er forget the blood that they have shed. You may take the shamrock from your hat and cast it on the sod, but 'twill take root.